Welcome, everyone. We'll be getting started in about a minute from now. Hopefully you all are here in the correct workshop. We are here for career pivot strategies, how to redirect your path and thrive. Today we have a really great special guest. She unfortunately can only be with us for the first 30 minutes or so. So I'm gonna pivot and have her speak for the most of the time in the beginning of our session, because it'll be very valuable experience that she'll be sharing with each and every one of you as you are taking a look at your different career pivots. But before we begin, if you could let me know either via the chat, or you can unmute yourself as well, and also let Megan Farina, who is our special guest from Deloitte, know where are you all in your career pivot, or why are you even interested in listening to a talk like this today. But so to give a little bit of statistics before I introduce our guest, Megan, 52% of individuals throughout their, actually at this moment in their career, are considering a career pivot. 44% of those are already planning to make a switch. The average person, so the average individual, has 12 jobs, 12 different jobs that they have throughout their career. And roughly half of all of the US workers are considering making that move. And so another interesting statistic that I found was, since starting their first job out of college, so if you look at all the professionals that are out there, 29% of the people have completely changed their field. So for those of you that are in school today, it's great that you have an interest of what you're interested in, but it's also important to keep an open mind to what else is out there as you continue to go through different experiences, meet new people, have different jobs, both that you like and that you don't like, and things change in life as well, where that's why we are very, very fortunate today to have Megan Farina, who is from Deloitte. She herself has went through a career pivot several times. Her knowledge is tremendous, and I definitely encourage everyone on the Zoom, as well as those of you here in the room, to reach out to her after this if she's okay with that.
Absolutely.
To learn more, because meeting people like that, it really helps you as you start to think about the opportunities and the different options that are out there. Without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Megan. Megan Farina is our special guest today. She is from Deloitte. She is currently a specialist leader in their cyber and strategic risk area for the GPS risk and financial advisory. Like I said earlier, she's been through these career pivots. She has a lot of great extensive experience. Megan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. I appreciate being here on camera with you all. I'm going to start with what you had spoken about, Jay, about career pivots. So my father was a Navy pilot, and he retired as a lieutenant commander when I was probably in high school, and went back to school and got his degree in psychology and became a social worker. So you can reinvent yourself all the time and do something completely different. Despite what you may feel like you've been married into, you can completely change your path at any point in time. It just takes a little bit of dedication. So speaking of changing careers, I've done that a couple of times. I started right out of George Mason as an information systems major, and got my degree, and then went on to work for Northrop Grumman in IT in Fairfax. And I loved that. It was very, very interesting. I was deploying military software for their travel. So they were going from a paper system, or like a DOS system, to now an online system, which has probably now moved into the cloud like everything has. But back then I would go to all the different military bases and help them install the software, get all the users' data, input it into the database, make sure it was uploaded correctly. It was a long 6-week process at each base. But I learned a lot. I learned about operations. I learned about configurations. I learned about customer service. I started their first help desk. And that was probably the job where I learned hands-on the most, because I got involved in anything I possibly could. So that's probably a really good piece of advice. Wherever you land, try to learn things that are a little outside of your comfort zone to add to your repertoire, because that's only going to make you more lucrative, and people are going to want you on their team when they know that you can do more than just one thing. So I went from Northrop Grumman to Booz Allen, kind of doing similar things, but now for the Navy, doing assessments on their technology. And then I got a wild hair and decided I'm going to be an FBI agent. This is going to be so fun. So I did that halfway through my career, completely stopped working in IT. Went to Quantico. It took about a year to get through the interview process and finally make my way to Quantico. Did that for 22 weeks and got sent to Newark, New Jersey, which was the last thing on my list. Never expected to go to the place where my mother was from. She always said New Jersey is a good place to be from. I actually met my husband, who was also in the bureau while I was up here, and now I'm still here. It tells you it's not always a bad thing when fate puts you in a place that you don't necessarily want to be in. Sometimes it's for a good reason. So I did that. I was an FBI agent doing counterterrorism, international crime for about 13 years. So halfway through my career with the Bureau would have been 10 years. And that's when you kind of start looking at, do I want to do this for another 10 years? Do I want to keep committing to this? It's a very volatile industry, law enforcement, and dangerous to boot. And I had 3 children. So I decided, I think I'm going to go back to my roots in technology, started interviewing, which is a hard process. I'm sure many of you have been going through that or are going through it. But when you have the right connections, like you're trying to make now and you're networking, doors will open. The door opened at Deloitte. It was an amazing opportunity. So I came on board as a specialist leader about 2.5 years ago. And my clients have been Department of Health in New York, the California DMV, Medicare, Medicaid, Child Protective Services in Georgia, all the same vein of working in cyber. And my wheelhouse is helping clients to build their systems and make sure that they are secure, that vulnerabilities are checked appropriately and remediated when necessary, keeping at the forefront of what's going on in cyber so that we can keep their systems safe. And that's kind of me in a nutshell. My husband works in finance, so he's on a different path from me. We don't speak the same language, but we complement each other pretty well. And we keep each other on our toes, which is cool still after almost 15 years of being married. And my kids are 12 and 9 and 8. So I have girl, boy, and they each have 3 to 4 sports each, which also keeps me busy. But I like being scheduled. I think time management is so important, especially when you are making a career change, to make sure you have everything in order behind the scenes so that you can focus your energy and your direction where you want it to go. It can be done. It is not easy. There was nothing easy, or the decisions to leave, public sector and go into law enforcement was a huge decision. It was a huge pay cut, but there's a future in it, right? You're building stepping stones so that someday you can move into that next job because you have the experience behind you to build on that. And in that vein, make sure you're staying current in your current path, whatever that is, whether it's cyber or tech or finance, and get all of the certifications that you can, either through George Mason or online. It just makes you more lucrative to companies that are looking for people. Like, I'm working on getting my CISSP, but staying current and keeping your certifications up to date is really important. They do look at those things.
That's great information that you shared, Megan. Thank you for your extensive background.
Yeah.
You had mentioned it's not easy. It's not easy to make the career pivot. And there's a lot of talk all the time when people are looking at careers and opportunities out there. People say, just take the leap and just dive in. What were some of the things as you were going through that search that you might have been afraid of, or maybe things that you would have done differently if you could go back in time? You've landed successfully where you are now, but if you went back in time and you had advice for those on the Zoom as well as those here in the room, what would they do? What would you do?
So I don't know that I would do things differently, but I would say, like, keep your cards kind of close, because people always have opinions. So when I left, Booz Allen to go to the Bureau, and when I left the Bureau to go to Deloitte, there was a lot of chatter, but I'd already made the decision. I didn't let other people's thoughts or opinions try to influence me because I kind of already knew what I wanted to do. But like the outside people that might have had an opinion and tried to keep me in a certain place, like, oh, please don't leave, you're doing so well, like, that's going to happen. But you just have to be prepared for that and really know what you want.
There's a question too in the chat. What factors should we weigh before we pivot? I am considering leaving my sales career for data analytics, and I don't know what I need to think about before pulling the trigger.
Yeah, there's a couple different things, right? So you're looking at what is trending, what is going to be important in the future, what's going to make you a little more well-rounded, where do you need to get experience so that you can say, well, I did this and this, not just sales, but I've also done sales and analytics. How can I marry the two together in the future? That's a good plan. And then salary, right? That's always a factor. I had to look really hard at the numbers because I took a 50% pay cut when I went into the Bureau, but it was worth it to me. And I knew that I could make it work. I had to change a couple of budgetary items and live in a smaller apartment and not a townhouse. You're going to build back up if you do have to take a salary cut at some point, that that your skills are going to only grow. So it's kind of a balancing act of, what do I want to learn? Where do I want to be in the future? It's okay to make this crazy decision right now because I know I have a plan. And even if you don't have a plan, just getting that experience in some other sector is so important to put something different on your resume and keep building your skill set. But if you want to have a more dynamic position in the future and not just be behind the scenes, you got to get more experience.
So Megan, we will be presenting you the slides. I didn't want to go through all the slides today because I really wanted to use Megan's time with us here and her knowledge. But in the slides, so one of the things that we talk about is a lot about networking, like constantly network, going to see people. What did you do as you were making that shift that helped you navigate through things and get closer to where you really wanted to be?
So it's very hard to network when you're in the bureau unless you want to continue being in law enforcement. You can't really talk about what you do when you're in counterterrorism. You can't really tell people, I've worked on this, this, and this. You're tight-lipped. So you have to find the right people, for me specifically, that understand coming out of that field what your qualities and your worth are. So building your network when you can is really important to show people how you can be utilized best. Building your brand is really, really important. And whether or not you like it, you will be branded at some point in your career as like really hardworking or really, really intelligent or forward thinking and futuristic. Like you're going to get labeled. So you have a say over how that happens. You can control people's perceptions of you based on your LinkedIn, based on the interactions you have with people, how you network, because that is really important for people to get to know you outside of just what they see on paper. That's kind of how I got my job. I had a certain brand when I was an agent that people knew and understood, and it translated very well into my next role. But that can be hard to do. You sit there and you're like, well, what are steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to build my brand? Put it in Chat GPT and see what it says. But no, it is very important to have something that you stand for and that makes you stand out.
Another thing we hear a lot about for people that are making the career pivots is transferable skills and really being able, like you said, talking about the brand and how do I bring the brand to the table and I'm able to transfer the skills of what I'm currently doing and pivoting to whatever I want to do next. When you interviewed for like Deloitte or made that switch to somewhere like Deloitte or made that career pivot, what were some of the things that you were thinking about, but also how did you sell that brand as you approach the new employer?
Well, for that specific situation, I was in a position as an agent where I wasn't a manager, right? Like as a field agent, you have like one boss, but you don't really have people that you are in charge of. And I said, I'd really like to move more into a leadership role. I've been doing all of this work for 20 plus years, and I think I'm ready to be in a position where I'm leading teams, I'm bringing, projects to fruition. I have the drive and the ability, and they believed in it, and it's been fabulous. It's worked really, really well. But I had to internally have that feeling of like, I need a change. I need something more challenging. I am feeling stagnant. And that's how I was able to use that energy, I guess, to bring to Deloitte and say, I have this ability. Let me show you. And they said yes.
Yeah, I had a question with regards to networking, like you mentioned, its importance. I know it's pretty important to be networking with other people, employers, etc. But my question is, when did you start? What period of time did you exactly start networking, and how did it go at the start? And now, what it is like? What's the progress? Like, how is it going now?
I mean, the networking for me started in college with my professors. That's how I ended up getting my first position with Northrop, was through one of my professors had a friend that worked at, it was TRW that then got bought out by Northrop and helped me get an interview there. Because, when you're starting out, you don't really know anybody. Like your college friends and like your parents, and that's basically it. So you start from the ground and then you work your way up. And each position that I had, each company that I worked in, I made really good connections with the people that I worked for and that worked with me or that worked for me. And we stayed in touch. And that's how you just keep moving along in the process and kind of gathering touchstones as you move along. And you find the people that you really mesh with. And those are the ones that are going to be really, really impactful, almost like having a best friend, like a work friend. I can't tell you how many of those people I brought with me to my team as I moved along in my career. Like, oh my gosh, I really need a good security tester. Call Todd, see if he's available. And that's kind of how it works. When you have something that you're known for and you work really well as a team, they won't forget you, and like keep in touch with them. I have quarterly touchstones with about 4 people from my past and present, just to see where are you at in your career? How are things going? How can we help each other? Making the time is important. And it's something that not everybody thinks about constantly. Like, oh, I should call this person. Oh, I don't want to bother them. It's really, it's a two-way street. They're helping you and you're helping them at the same time, because I have a couple of mentees, but I get something out of that too. Like I'm learning from my mentees as much as they're learning from me.
So Marley asks, how do I figure out what skills are transferable from one career to another if they are very different?
Interpersonal skills are always going to be required, whether I was interviewing someone when I was in the bureau or whether I was giving a presentation on a case that I was working. to now being in front of the client, you have to be able to present, you have to be able to public speak, and you have to have interpersonal skills so that you can work well with others. I've had situations where I've had to tell people, you need to stop oversharing and stop talking over other people. And those can be hard discussions. It's not always going to be a linear, easy, everyone gets along and everything's great. There are going to be challenges. And you have to be able to kind of get in front of those, do it professionally. I think professional skills are one of the most important things you can have going into a career where it may be a huge shift for you. But what do they say? Fake it till you make it, right? So bring what you have to the table that you think is appropriate and applicable, and the rest you can kind of learn on the job. I've done that a few times where I've had to learn things kind of on the fly, did a lot of research in the background so that I could be more impactful. But it's possible. I had a friend that was in fashion that decided she wanted to go into finance, and now she does financial fashion stuff. Like she's married the two together, but she didn't see it at the time that there wasn't even a career for that back then. She's like, well, I just got tired of not making any money in fashion, so I decided to go into finance, and now look at me. It's like this amazing mashup. But it is important to have those other skill sets, because you just never know what the future is going to hold for you. It's okay to kind of go outside of your comfort zone sometimes. If you find the right people that will be patient with you, it works.
That's great advice, Megan. And when you talk about like finding the right people, and those trusted advisors and people that know you well, how have you seen people turn to folks to better understand their strengths? Like we talked about the strengths that are out there. Like the fashion example that you gave, she didn't see that, but then all of a sudden she sees it. Like how would you advise the students on this call today to really look for that?
Coaching is helpful, like having a mentor that kind of sees the big picture, because like we get very heads down, very focused in our careers, and we kind of forget like, oh, I was driving towards this, or well, what if I shifted and did this instead? It's kind of silly, but my stepmother is a life coach, an executive life coach. So I touch base with her every once in a while, and she thinks of things that like I would have never thought of myself, because I don't do that. I'm not an executive coach. So if you have somebody you can kind of lean on that's not necessarily a professional, but even just a friend who kind of is outside of your sector that can kind of see things from a different perspective, that is hugely beneficial, because we put our blinders on and we forget that there are other things out there.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, it's so easy to put the blinders and be on the day-to-day job. And I mean, I can speak from my own experience in that I had a mentor who really saw that I was actually getting lost in the position that I was in. It wasn't giving me life anymore. I was good at it and I can go through the motions every day. And thankfully, he knew me well enough where he pulled me aside and said, Jay, he actually said word for word, you're too good for this. There's something else that's going on out there. And it was a wake-up call for me to really sit and talk to people like Megan and others that were in different industries that I kind of was jazzed about. Like you could see I was excited when I was talking to these people. And not every single one of those connections was perfect. Not every single one led me to being like, okay, I'm going to do this. But it got me to see more of what my strengths are, what my values are, and where I truly wanted to be or would feel, you're not going to be happy every day at work, but where I would feel fulfilled and really trying to do what I want to do, whether it be national security, cyber, whatever field that might be. So really finding what I like to call your personal board of advisors. That's made up of a good mix of people from your professional life, your school, your family, and so forth, that that he or she is going to give you spot on advice, and they know you well enough where they're not going to sugarcoat things. They're not going to just say things because they want to be nice to you. That will really help you really see more of the path of where you're going and where you could potentially be.
Yeah, and what you want and what you're good at change over time. It definitely, like it changed for me a couple of times. I'm sure, Jay, it changed for you as well. And that's kind of normal. Like from what you said, statistically speaking in the beginning, people have 12 different jobs in their lifetime, and you are going to change, and you're going to grow, and you're going to learn things, and you're going to learn about yourself, about what you like and what you don't like. It was really hard for me to leave the bureau because I had invested so much time and effort into it, but I changed, and what I want changed, and what my family needed changed. And so I had to change with it. That's just life.
And how do you weigh your own personal needs and the life changes? You had mentioned taking half a pay cut, and
Yes.
I fortunately or unfortunately have had to do and have done the same. I personally have found that to be very rewarding, and I ended up on a better side of things. But when you think about that and you look at all those changes and those weighing the pros and cons of everything. What steps did you take to really allow you to take the green light? And again, I'm going to make that leap right away.
Well, I had my family all backed me and they were very supportive. It was really, really hard to move from Virginia, where my family lives, to New Jersey. I think that was the biggest heartache for me, but I was already so invested, and the ability to give back was so important to me that it outweighed anything I felt about leaving my family behind me. Like, they're always going to be there, and I can always come back at some point. But I just felt so compelled to take this leap. And you're right, financially, it was hard, but it also prepared me for things that happened later, like when we got furloughed or shut down now. I was prepared in those moments to be able to budget correctly and get through the hard times because I knew I'd done it before. So when you do have to make a seemingly outrageous choice or something that you're slightly uncomfortable or really uncomfortable with, know that it's sometimes preparing you for something else. And you can all find me on LinkedIn if you'd like to connect, and if you have questions you want to take offline, I'm happy to answer them.
And that's a great point, that Brandon, thank you for offering that, Megan, because
Sure.
when someone offers that, definitely take advantage of that.
That's an
And
easy
also when they
network, easy network win.
And when they offer it too, remind the individual how you met them too. So you're not just connecting right away with Megan, or she's probably getting connections from so many different people. Let her know you attended this workshop and hopefully found it useful. And with that, with that, so are there any, like, what drew you to come today?
Just learning, just the opportunities, getting out of my own head and just learning about the environment.
So I like what you said about you. So the student in the room said, getting out of my head and learning about the opportunities. How do you get yourself out of your head? Because it's so easy to get out of in your head. How did you do that, Megan?
Making time for things that are important to me. So I like to run, I like to work out, I like to read. Again, that's time management, but that gets me out of my normal everyday go, 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 right? So having like 10, 15, 20 minutes to myself helps me center and come back to what I need to do on the other side of things. And then sometimes when I'm doing those things that are not necessarily brain impactful, I can think about things on another level, and thoughts will come just randomly that are so helpful. And if I hadn't done that, if I just kept heads down, I never would have seen that. I never would have felt that. So giving yourself grace and space to be you outside of just your role is very, very important. And I saw the question in the chat about imposter syndrome. There were moments in my FBI career where, like in Quantico, things got really hectic and a little bit scary. And I'm like, am I making the right choice here? Like, is this really for me? And you'll have those moments. And you when you know it's right, you'll push through it. But even when you've made the decision to do something that's really scary, you're still going to doubt yourself. There's always going to be that little voice inside at some point that's saying, you should have stuck with the good thing. You should have stuck with that. But you're learning, and maybe you're right and maybe you're wrong in those moments, but you're learning. And I think that's really important, that you're going to feel like the imposter syndrome. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's true.
That's a great answer. And thank you, Angela, for that question, because I think we all approach and at one point in our lives, everyone, if you haven't already, will go through the whole imposter syndrome. Something to remember too, just as Megan has shown in her career, is that we all have our strengths too. So we all have our uniqueness that we bring to the table. And that's part of what she had said earlier too, is telling your story and your brand. What is that brand? What makes each and every one of you, everyone on the call, everyone in this room different? So if we're the same and if we're competing against that same job, that difference can make a whole big difference in the decision of Deloitte or another company to take you in there. And differences are good, because it's like, you're, as a career pivoter, you're bringing in new perspectives. You're bringing in new ideas. You're not just coming from the industry where that's all you've done throughout your career. So you bring a lot of strengths to the table, and it's something to think about if you can coach it and flip the switch to think it fit from that perspective.
And I know Deloitte specifically, when you're being looked at to be promoted, they do compare you to your peers. So having something that makes you stand out, or having done something really, really impactful during that year, kind of gives you an edge as far as like Deloitte is concerned. And I'm sure that other industries and positions have the same thresholds.
Because Megan, I want to be cognizant of your time, and I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Is there anything in closure, as we have about a minute before you have to leave us, that you'd like to leave for the group?
Just good luck and believe in yourself, and do different things. Get a lot of good experience and keep building your network, and reach out if you need me.
Oh, thank you, Megan. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all.
Hopefully we'll see you soon. Appreciate it. And so I wanted to show you all a brief video, and hopefully this works for those that are online. It's from our LinkedIn Learning. Each of you have access to LinkedIn Learning. but I wanted to share a video, and this is about switching roles. So it talks a little bit about what Megan had mentioned, but a little also some differences as well. But so I'm gonna try to play this and I hope it will work.
Tell me they switched industries, not their next gig. Being a marketer and in the field of instructional design, hardware engineer going to firmware and software, a product manager going to general management, and many other transformations. So first, now it's possible to reinvent your career. The name of the game in switching roles or industries is transferable skills. Get out a sheet of paper or use a notes tool wheel and write down all the skills you have and how strong they are. A 1 to 5 rating is fine. Now reread the list and be honest with yourself. Are you good at managing project details and budgets or slipshod? Is your leadership something people commend you on or an area where you're going to back? Are your job skills current or these legacy? Once you have a good handle on these skills, you need to put together the story of why you're switching roles or industries. Perhaps you want a new challenge, or maybe the pay is better, or you're going to go back to a childhood passion, or to an industry that's booming. Whatever it is, build a bridge from where you've been to where you're headed. Maybe you're a hardware engineer looking to move into data analytics. You've got the quant background and the math skills, but you haven't used Scala or R or Tableau or done any of the business operations or presentation work. You've got to fill in the gaps for potential hiring managers. Why should they take a chance on hardware engineers moving to data? Ask yourself what questions the recruiter is going to ask all in the data world. They might want to see evidence of additional education, side projects, or recommendations on your math skills in your profile. So update that LinkedIn profile to list the skills you need for the next job, and look for recommendations along these lines. Don't be afraid to enroll in educational endeavors that signal your commitment in the direction. Brand yourself on the resume as having the best of both worlds, where you've been and where you're headed. And know here, work harder than people who are classically trained. What will your unique edge be? You'll need to find one to set yourself up for success. You can also do informational interviews and lots of research to learn the lingo of your next role, so you speak the right language when you're interviewing. There's a popular meme with a recruiter telling a candidate that his salary expectations are really high. Says, yeah, because I don't know what I'm doing. Don't let this be you. Make sure you do as much prep as possible to come across as a clear choice for this exciting role.
So as you saw from there, it's like it's really important to try to look at things of what you can do to stand out. Each and every one of you, even if you're just coming out of school or if you don't even have the work experience, you're bringing unique qualities to the table. How can I display that? What can I do to show that I'm the best person for that? And part of it is through research, through taking time to better understand who you are and also understand what the company is to see how you match. So that was just a quick video on LinkedIn Learning. They have a whole course on LinkedIn Learning that you can watch that talks a lot about career pivots. So what are the steps for a good career pivot? Again, looking at filling the gaps and building the skills. So what if you do have a gap? So again, they talked about imposter syndrome. Someone asked the question about imposter syndrome. I could easily come in. I know myself when I was looking for a career switch, I also felt that imposter syndrome. And I went to my board of advisors and I said, what are the skills I have here? This is what they're looking for. And ironically, when I went to those advisors, they started telling me all the different things that I've done that I didn't even realize that I was doing that was tied to what this organization needed and wanted. And then with that imposter syndrome too, I could see what my weakness was. And with that weakness, I went in and I volunteered. I literally went to organizations, I volunteered at organizations, and I started doing the things that I wasn't as strong at, but knew I can gain more experience. And after I did that, not only did I gain confidence, but I had experience that I could add to my resume. I could articulate when I got the opportunity for either an informational interview or actual interview. And I was able to take that. So that networking and that connections can pay off tremendously. So these are just 5 things that you should think about as you're starting to think about that pivot. Strengths inventory. So we offer here, on campus here, the strength, Clifton Strengths, if you're interested in that, if you haven't taken it. But some things that you can really think about is, what are you good at? We're all good at something. What do you enjoy doing? That's another big thing. So maybe I'm good at something, but I don't enjoy it. What are your values and priorities? So how does that tie in also to the organizations and the jobs you're looking at? Does it match? Because if it doesn't match, that can often be a recipe for just failure and different things. And so this is, again, self-reflection that you take. As we mentioned earlier, ask your friends, ask the family that you have, ask your colleagues, what would they consider your strengths? And you'll be surprised at what they will say. And then how does that match with what you believe in yourself? And that also helps with that imposter syndrome question too, when you see that match. So use your network to help validate what those skills and the inventory that you have. Researching. So there's all the researching. Megan mentioned ChatGPT, definitely use it. LinkedIn, you all have access to LinkedIn Learning here, Glassdoor, and then meeting with us here as career advisors. We can help you navigate some of the tough questions that you might be seeking, and that's what we're here for, to help you as well. So then there's some of these other things. I'm not going to turn to these, but you'll have a link to each of these. And what this next move is pretty cool because it allows you to search different careers. So if it's going to be my night, that's why they call it the next move. There's different careers. You can browse by industry. So I can look at industries. Maybe you heard you might be good in X industries. Just as Megan made the switch to her different industries. And also there's a section there, I believe, and I think it's free. It's discover your strengths. So it allows you to take time to plug in answers to different questions, and then it shows you what your strengths are based on that. These are all tools that you can look at, and I'll send this presentation again to all of you where you'll have a link to that. Building skills. So some of you might have already used some of these different things. So maybe I don't have the skills. Again, I love that question of imposter syndrome because maybe I don't have the programming skills in like R or Tableau or whatever, because I want to become a data analyst. And if I don't have those skills, I can go to things like Forage and Parker Dewey and actually do projects to gain that experience. Or maybe I go back to my professor and my class and the classes that I'm taking and see how can I use these different skills to have a project so that I can showcase that if and when I decide to make that move. So these are all different things that you may have already used. If you haven't used, it's out there. Many of it is free, and it's something I'd encourage you to look into. Networking, we talked about that. You'll hear me say that all the time, network, network, network. So many different professional associations. So when you're making a career pivot, one of the best things you could possibly do is go to events that are tailored towards that industry or that association. So when I was making a move from consulting to higher education and I wanted to come back to a place like George Mason, I started going to NACE events, which is the National Association of College and Employers. I started going to these breakfasts where I met with people that were in the industry. I asked them all these different questions of what's happening, what's going on. I actually went to different campuses and visited and talked to students. So same thing with consulting companies. If you're interested in going into consulting, go talk to the Deloittes, talk to the PwCs of the world, any type of industry, whatever it might be. Most people you will find when you go on LinkedIn and you try to connect with alumni or other people, they want to talk about what they do. And they're there to show you that there's options that are out there. So never be afraid to ask, because the worst someone's going to say is no. The best they're going to say is yes. And then you have maybe a mentor or an individual that's going to last there a lifetime for you. Don't ever be afraid to do that. So there's a lot of different tools where you can do that as well. And we can help you as well. Taking the leap, as we mentioned earlier. So tailoring your resume. So you're going to have to change the words in your resume. You're going to have to maybe change some of the key accomplishments that you made, because maybe what you want to do now in the new thing, it's very different than what your core job was. That doesn't mean you haven't done it. It just maybe wasn't the core thing in the position. So take time to look at what you did. Do that inventory, use different words, and submit those applications. So here's a sample post. So here, again, something I did when I was making a career pivot, I immediately went onto LinkedIn. I immediately went on to even Instagram and social medias, and I put a picture out there and I told my network that I was looking for something new and something different. And I'll tell you, the minute I did that, I literally did something just like this. I got a call from 2-3 different people. One of them was my former colleague that I worked with maybe 10, 12 years ago. And she actually had a job opportunity for me because she knew me from my past. She knew my background. She saw what I was interested in because I was very clear in what I was interested in. And she knew I had that capability. So she immediately connected me with someone at her organization. And within a month, I was working for her organization. That's an anomaly, and that might not happen to everybody, but it does happen. And so if you don't share what you're looking at through these social media and different things and what you're good at, no one will know. You want people to know. And so this is just an example. And again, you'll have this presentation, so you'll be able to see it. So burnout, as Megan mentioned too, it's easy to burn out in these searches. It's easy to get frustrated too, because maybe you're not getting any hits or you're not seeing any movement. So again, set realistic expectations and goals. Be realistic to yourself. You know yourself the best and understand what your limits are and how much you can push. Schedule regular breaks. So don't live this 24/7. You'll go crazy if you do this 24/7. Make sure you take breaks and you recharge. Focus on self-care. So ensure that you're caring for yourself and your mental well-being. Like she was talking about having to take a pay cut. She could have easily stressed over that pay cut, and that could have really taken her mindset off of the goal of getting that new opportunity. Celebrating small wins. So we get small wins. It's easy to wait until the big win. Let's celebrate those small wins. When you get a meeting for a coffee hour with someone, that's a big win because you're getting your foot in the door and you're learning something different. And then seek the support. Lean on the people that you have around you. Human nature, again, at least for good people, is we want to help the people that we love and care about, work and use those people. So planning. So it's important to have some type of a tracking system. So whether you use it on the computer or do whatever you want, find a system that allows you to track your progress. So you can kind of see things and you can follow up as well. But if you meet with someone, if I met with one of you, I would have that on there. I would have your contact information. I'd be ready to move from one place to the other. These are tips. Again, I'm not going to have to read all of these things, but one of the things that I really like is number 5 is embrace your unique journey. So I can go about this one way. You might go about it a different way. Doesn't mean one right or wrong. It's your unique journey. You take the best of maybe what I've done or what Megan has done, and then you create the best path for you. And so these are just some of the things to think about as you go. Again, you'll have this presentation, so you'll see all these different tips. These are other resources. You'll have links to it. Parker Dewey allows you to work on projects where you can gain different skills. There's a career shift page, Handshake, as most of you are familiar with, LinkedIn, and so forth. And then if you're interested in nonprofits, Idealist is a great site that allows you to see the work that's being done out there in the nonprofits. Temp agencies. So this is a really good point here too. Literally, when I made my career switch, I'm one of those people that have been to almost 12 different jobs, made a career shift maybe 3 or 4 times already. Whenever I made that career shift, I did reach out to temp agencies. I saw the temp agencies that were in the industries that I was interested in, and I actually got some contract work much quicker in that way. So take a look at some of these agencies and see what they might be out there in terms of the opportunities and the work. And don't be afraid to take a temporary position. That position might lead to something that goes full time. Or maybe you need a stopgap for a couple months. I actually took the place of someone that was on maternity leave and I was in transition and I wanted to learn more. So I applied for the position. It was a little less pay than I was used to, but I got the job and I gained so much good experience to allow me to make that transition. Something to think about. These are just some examples. There's many, many more, but you'll have links to each of these that you can take a look at when you get the presentation. Volunteering, mentioned that a little bit earlier too. So oftentimes maybe we can't get the real life work experience, but there's opportunities to volunteer here on campus, outside of campus, in community events and activities, whatever your skill set is or whatever skill set you're trying to gain and the gifts that you each have, what you can contribute, look at these different opportunities that are out there. Because again, volunteer experience is just like regular work experience. Take a look at there, and that's a good way to facilitate skills that you, again, might be weak at that you need to gain. So in the end here, this is an overview of what we do. So for those of you who have not visited us, or if you have visited us, we are here to provide resume, cover letters, especially in a transition. So when you're making a transition, sometimes it's important to have a functional resume, which is very different because I don't have as much experience in the industry, but from a functional standpoint, I do have the skill sets that are required. So we can help you to craft that if that's something that is the case for you. We also have employee industry focused networking all over. You'll find it on Handshake. Interview support, this is big. So as you get prepared for the interview, how do we do that? Career and industry exploration, all your searches, a bunch of workshops, salary negotiations. Hopefully you get to that point, especially if it's a new industry too. You'll have to work towards that negotiation. And then we also offer an internship for credit course. So these are a lot of different services that we offer. Here's how you connect with us. We have walk-in hours that you can come in and speak to someone like myself or other advisors. And most of our appointments are 30 minutes long, and you can go on this site to schedule an appointment. This is our contact information. This is a QR code that goes through all of our online career modules that we have. So we have like online modules that talk about resumes, cover letters, interviews, and so forth. Finally, connect with us on social media. And why it might be good to connect on social media, even if you don't like social media, is a lot of times we will post different events and different things like this workshop. It only takes one opportunity to meet one person and one individual. And if you go to that event and you meet that individual and he or she helps you, it can take your path in a totally different direction. So again, don't be afraid about the career pivot. Don't be afraid about the switch, looking at the different opportunities. Utilize us at the Career Center because we can help you with that as well. Talk to people like Megan, connect with people like Megan. She's one of many people that have went through this transition. And the more you talk to people, you'll kind of see like, wow, I'm not alone in this boat. Again, I love the question of the imposter syndrome because I remember totally sitting in a room like this at my university. And I was like, I felt so much like I had imposter syndrome. I really felt like I couldn't do what I was trying to do. I was trying to become a leadership coach, and I was always in consulting and business and industry. And I saw all these different people that had all these great credentials. And I kept on psyching myself out that I'm not ready for this, or I can't charge you X amount of money because of this. Well, all it took was me meeting several people to learn about their story. And as I learned their story, I learned that about the art of the possibility. And I ended up getting my first client charging more money than I even had ever thought I could. And they did not even resist it. I was so scared that they were going to say no. And I was so afraid they would look at me like he doesn't know what he's talking about. But as I changed my mindset and I went in there and I validated through talking to different people, I was able to get that contract like that. It gave me confidence, gave me understanding of who I was, what I could do, and what I could offer. And that's the key for you, as Megan had mentioned, understanding your brand. Because for those of you that are on the Zoom as well as in here, if you can understand your brand, it's going to genuinely come out when you speak to whoever is across the table from you. And they will see it, they will see what resonates, they will be excited, and they will want to learn more. That's a goal, is for them to understand, number one, who you are, but then number two, I want to learn more about that individual because they spark my interest. And if you can do that, then everything starts to run into place. And they're always going to run into people that aren't as nice and might not work out, but you learn from those experiences as well. So those are different things that I would definitely suggest. Any other like last minute questions? Hopefully this is helpful for all of you. Again, we're here for you to help you as you navigate your journeys. We're confident that you all bring to the table a lot of really good skills. You know, we want you to be successful.
What about those people who are like introverted, for example, and they want help, but they can't really approach people?
Yeah.
What would you advise with them?
That's a great question for the introvert. I'm an introvert.
I'm too.
Yeah. So one of the things again is, so for introverted people, this is just some of my own experiences. I think it's good to start one-on-one in small groups, find the people that you're comfortable with and talk to them about this experience. As you get more comfortable, one of the things I would really start to zone in on is the question that we had earlier about what am I good at? Because if you know what you're good at, and if you can talk, like think about it, and now you can answer this question. It's like when you're talking about what you're good at, right? Doesn't that come naturally?
Yeah.
And it's easier, no matter who you're, even as an introvert, whoever you're speaking to speak about that versus if I'm speaking about something that I hate or I'm not good at. Look at what you're naturally good at and start the conversations in that way. And also understand that the human being behind the table over there or behind the computer over there, they also at one point were in your shoes. And if you're speaking to an extrovert, that might sometimes even easier because they love to talk. They're going to chat. They're going to tell you more information. All you have to do is think about some curious questions. Like, what are the questions I want to ask? Just like the questions you asked Megan, one or two good questions, and then you'll find that they'll spend most of the time talking. And so it helps you because you're good at listening, finding things. But as an introvert, also my tip for you as an introvert is be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Remember that statement. Learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
And if it's within language barrier,
Language barrier?
yeah, trying to be comfortable with the language barrier because obviously English is not my first language. So what tips will you give for that?
Well, your English is very good, by the way. It's excellent. I would never even think about that. Then my tips, number one is, it's not a barrier. because the way that you're presenting yourself now, I would never even think that. If it's a language barrier, just actually, again, be yourself, be who you are. Don't try to be someone you're not. You try to be someone you're not, it's gonna show and you're not gonna do well. That's a great question. Did that answer it?
Yeah.
Or workshop schedule, yeah, so Megan just put in the workshop schedule, so there's a lot of workshops that we have. Definitely check them out, tons of them, just like this one. And for those of you that are on Zoom, if you ever get a chance to come on campus, or if you're on campus, I encourage you to come in person, because we can have more time here in person as well. But we really appreciate all of you coming today. I hope you found it useful and helpful, and I hope you keep in touch with all of us and come back to the center, either virtually or in person. And don't hesitate to reach out to me. My name is Jay Lowaneg. I'm a career advisor here. You can find me online, and I'm happy to chat with any one of you in the future to help you, not only with this, but everything as you navigate your careers. Anything else? If not, we will close for today, and I will send you the presentation in the next day or so. Thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it.